Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC 309, Jones versus Miocic. Yes. Jones versus Miocic. The long-awaited UFC 309 card. I finally got to it. I finally watched the whole thing. It's a beautiful card. It's an amazing card that is riddled with terrible scorecards, riddled in between that doesn't really matter because a lot of the fights ended in finishes. A lot of the fights were kind of regular. But just while the night ended, you know, in an appropriate fashion, this card is riddled with so many fucking blotches. Not from a scorecard perspective, but just from a fight perspective. We're going to start off with the first fight. First fight of the night, Hardy versus Moura. Okay. This is Moura's new weight class. I believe she moved up instead of... she was at 115 before, I believe. Now she's at 125. All right. And she looked pretty fucking shit. She looked absolutely garbage. And I'm starting to see a small trend here where a lot of fighters are winning off of optics. And it's a little bit of that in this fight. There's been other cards where it's very obvious that the optics of the fight is winning them the fight, when in fact it's not. That's just not supposed to happen in any sense of the imagination. Let's start off here. I had this 29-28 for Hardy. Okay, I'm not going to call this a robbery, but I'll explain my reasoning. First round for Hardy, 10-9. Last round for Hardy as well. That's the clearest one. And then the second round for Moura. In the first round, Hardy outstrikes Moura by about 5 strikes. Moura lands 2 heavy strikes on Hardy. Okay, 2 heavy strikes. While she's getting outstruck, it's not like clear she's getting outstruck. And what I mean by clear, it's not as though she's getting outstruck by a wide margin. She is outstruck in this round by Hardy. Pitter-patter shots to the leg, shots to the body. Normally those would count, all right? And if there were more strikes in this round, it would be more evident that that Moura lost this round, but it's not. Now, Moura gets a takedown at the end of the round to close the round, and maybe that's what secures it for her if these strikes were closer, in my opinion, but they're not. She's outstruck in this round pretty clear. She lands 2 heavy strikes on top of Hardy, and she takes her down, and before she begins her ground and pound, the clock ends. So if we're scoring this on a fight night, we've scored this type of round on 50 billion fight nights. But guess what? They give that. If this were on a fight night, this round goes to Veronica Hardy. And before anyone goes into the mindset of I'm caping for Veronica Hardy, I'm not. She's a terrible fighter too. So let's not even. We can just zoom off that point. Moura, on the other hand, is very conserved in her strikes. So conserved in her strikes, it's apparent in round 3. But let's start with round 2. Moura gets a takedown with ground and pound for about 3+ minutes. Hardy's pretty active on the bottom, but this round belongs to Moura. This is a theme in this fight. People that are on top, a few fighters who are on top, are just very allergic to ground and pound. We'll get to Chandler and Oliveira in a second. So that's what happens in round 2. Round 3, Hardy outstrikes Moura by about 9 strikes. Moura is so inactive in this round, it's pissing me off because I'm looking at my scorecard. I'm going, this is 1-1. But in the back of my head, just the way the commentary is talking, just the mood of the vibe of the night, you can feel it in the air. Just the vibe of the card. I know it's the first card of the night, but the vibe of the card, the way the commentary is speaking, I'm just assuming, you know what, they'll probably give Moura the first round instead of Hardy. But I'm looking at it 1-1, so I'm expecting, okay, can she go out there and land some shit? No. She dances for 5 minutes while Hardy is landing consistently on her. And that's where you have, and she's so inactive in this round, and that's where you have my 29-28. You go to the judges' scorecards, and obviously I disagree with 2 of the judges, but we'll go here. Chris Belinsky I think Chris Belinsky falls. Listen, this is my mindset. But if you look at Chris Belinsky's scorecard, the only thing you can think up in your head is that he fell pressure to the vibe of the night. And what I'm saying is, when Moura lifts her hands up like, yeah, I won. And I'm assuming Belinsky in his head is going, I just wrote the first round for Hardy. If I write this third round for Hardy, which she won, clearly, I'm going to look like a dodo. And he makes a business decision and writes in a 10-9 for Moura on a round that she lost on everybody's scorecard on the planet Earth. It's gross. He purposely gave her the fight. And he purposely gave her the last round because he didn't want to look bad. That's the only way you can mark. That's the only way you can mark this. There's nothing in round 3 that gives Moura this round at all. 29-28 to Moura on Chris Belinsky's scorecard. He gives her the last 2 rounds. Honorable mention there. I won't speak about the first round because we can argue that back and forth. But giving her the last round is atrocious. Honorable mention to Chris Belinsky. Then you have Brian Miner. His scorecard is technically the correct scorecard. Again, I disagree with all the first round scorecards given to Moura, but he gives the first 2 rounds to Moura, last round to Hardy. That's correct by Brian Miner. You then go to Junichiro Kamijo, and he gives a 30-27 to Moura. 30-27 to Moura is gross. It's gross. Forget the first round. Forget the second round. Gives her the third round. He already has 2 rounds for her. The third round, she gets outstruck clear. Honorable mention, Junichiro. It's atrocious. That's how we start off the night. So that's how I'm feeling towards the night. This card is great. It's action-packed. It's all over the place. But that's how we start off the night. Let's go to the second one. Now, before Hafez versus Elliot is the second fight, I want to make something clear. I was expecting that I was going to see first 2 rounds for Elliot and then the KO in the third round. That's how I had it on my scorecards. I give the first 2 rounds to Elliot and then a KO. In the first round, Elliot outstruck Hafez by about 5 strikes, and then the second round, he outstruck Elliot by about 8 strikes. Unbeknownst to me, I check the judges' scorecards, and they were like, "Lord help me so much, please." The judges were about to give this fight to Basil Hafez. I don't know what Hafez was doing in these 2 rounds that you can argue anything for him. The judging is so gross. I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. Let's start off here. Derek Cleary gives the first 2 rounds to Hafez. Honorable mention. Just absolute ridiculous. Chris Lee. First round for Elliot. Second round for Hafez. Honorable mention. Bad. Ron McCarthy, his scorecard reflects Chris Lee. Honorable mention. It's bad. All 3 scorecards are bad. No round should have gone to Basil Hafez, but it did. Let's move on. Tybura versus Diniz. Okay, first 2 rounds I gave to Tybura, and it finished. It ended in a TKO at the end of the second round, technically, because doctors. It was a doctor stoppage, and they called the fight. Do I think they should have called the fight? Probably not. They did it anyways. They made it seem like it was reasonable. Whatever, we move on. First 2 rounds to Tybura. In the first round, Tybura had a reversal. He basically got rocked. He got outstruck on the feet for a little bit. He got rocked. Lands on the ground. Reverses position on Diniz. And I don't want to call it a drop. I don't want to say he got dropped, but he kind of he got stunned, and then Diniz kind of pushed on top of him and got him on the ground. Regardless, Tybura gets a reversal and proceeds to win the rest of the round. He's on top of him for 3 minutes, landing ground and pound, and steals back the round. You go to the second round where Tybura gets a takedown with ground and pound for 3 minutes, and it's heavy. It's not. Here's the thing. I put a possible 10-8. I don't think it's a 10-8. He lands little to consistent ground and pound up until the last 10 seconds where he just unloads. And maybe someone could give him a 10-8. I won't give him a 10-8, but somebody could, maybe. regardless, he just unloads a bunch of ground and pound there, and that's what leads to really the finish at the start of the third round. You go to the judges' scorecards. And Derek Cleary, Junichiro Kamijo, and Brian Miner, all their scorecards are the same. They gave a 10-9 in the first round to Tybura, and then a 10-8 in the second round to Tybura as well. So there you go on that. You go to the next honorable mention, and it's Onama versus Romero. This pissed me off entirely. We've seen rounds like this. I can't think of any off the top of my head because I'm fucking pissed right now. But Onama versus Romero, 29-28 to Onama. First round of Romero. Stop it. Whether the drop happens at the end or the drop happens in the middle doesn't even matter. Romero is outstriking Onama clear in this first round. Let's start off with the first round. He's outstriking him clear. He's outstriking him by the end of the round. They both get dropped in the same fashion. Okay, Romero gets dropped at the end. Onama gets dropped somewhere at the start to middle of the first round. But Romero outstrikes him by about 7+ strikes in this round. Both of them get dropped. I don't know how many times I have to mention both of them get dropped. I'm not saying we have to score this like boxing, but they both got fucking dropped. One outstruck the other pretty fucking clear. I don't know how you score this round for Onama. I don't see how you outstrike this. You give this first round to Onama, but they did. They gave it to Onama somehow. You go to the second round. Onama outstruck Romero by about 7+ strikes. He also had some ground and pound. A little bit inactive on top. This was the theme of the fight. When someone was on top, minus Tybura and maybe a few other people, they're just allergic to ground and they're just slow. They're slow. Let me put it that way. They're slow to the ground and pound. Very, very fucking slow to the ground and pound. Like, where was the ground and pound? These niggas are on top just chilling. And Joe made a good point in the night of like, yo, if this isn't, I think he said it for a different fight, but the point still stands for most of these fights. If this were in Salt Lake City, they're getting peppered with action, hurry the fuck up. Like, let's go. They're getting hit with that. They're not in Salt Lake City. They're in New York. So instead of persistent hurry the fuck up on the ground, it's just bad reffing. And we'll get to that in a second. So that's what we got here. In the third round, Onama outstruck Romero by about 12 strikes on the feet, and he had a takedown with some ground and pound for about 2+ minutes. He had a lot more ground and pound in this round than he did in round 2. You go to the judges' scorecards, and it just pisses me off. All three judges, Chris Belinsky, Chris Lee, and Ron McCarthy, just terrible. They give the first 30-27. They all had it. They give the first round to Onama. What are we scoring? What the hell are we scoring? Cool. We go to the next honorable mention. Sandwiched in between that, obviously, Chris Miller gets a submission win over Damon Jackson. McGhee beats Martinez 29-28. Ruffy, he goes 29-28 against Llontop. Ruffy basically has no cardio if he goes 5 rounds. Araujo beats Karine Silva. I thought Karine Silva was going to win. No, she just apparently also has some deficiencies in her game, but that's okay. We get to the meat of the card. Now, this isn't really controversial per se, but I just want to highlight something. The narrative, and this comes in a lot. Sometimes the narrative of the commentary, and this isn't me shitting on the commentary. This is the best commentary group out of the bunch. From an entertainment standpoint, from an analytic or an analyzation, that's probably the better word, analyzation standpoint, especially for this fight, given that DC fought against both of the guys in the main event. The way they talk about the fight, and specifically Anik, I feel like Anik drives the narrative on some of these fights, and I particularly don't like it. Sometimes he highlights certain shots that shouldn't be highlighted. He doesn't highlight the shots that are returned by the person that returned fire. I don't like the narrative sometimes in the commentary, but beyond that point, the narrative was very persistent very early, is that I'm talking about Nickal versus Craig. Nickal was having problems with Craig. And by problems, it was Nickal refused to take him down, coupled with Craig is having some success on the feet. That's really the narrative that was being pushed. That made it almost seem as though Craig won a round or something. And I'm watching this going, hold on. Every time Craig lands, Most of his shots are blocked. Very few body shots landed. Most of the shots are blocked. Also, anytime Craig landed, Nickal would land in return. Not only would he land in return, he was outstriking him all 3 rounds. Fairly comfortably, by the way. The strikes tell a uniquely stupid story that these were close. They were even on strikes, when that's not even the fucking case. They weren't even close on strikes. And the fight looked goofy because Craig looked comfortable and was able to talk shit. For the first time ever, he's not getting bashed in the head from going for a guillotine or something. He's talking shit. The crowd is mad because Nickal's overrated. And while there's some truth in that, in that they do, many of the previous fights, I don't know if I've talked about them on here, but they continue to glaze Nickal a lot. Nickal will defeat someone who came in on short notice, and all of a sudden he's an amazing boxer. When I'm like, well, hold on, that doesn't even wash. That doesn't even make any sense. 2, he takes 10 years to take somebody down and submit them. His first official UFC fight is him taking down Jamie Pickett and struggling to take him down. Hitting him in the balls, getting the submission, and nobody cares about that all of a sudden. Struggling to submit Cody Brundage. Okay? Now, the counter to that is, well, if that's his game, of course he's going to struggle to that because the people who came in to fight him are preparing for that. That's fair game. That's total fair game. My problem is uplifting him as some sort of new... His striking is so next level. And I think the narrative on this fight was that Nickal should have, and the reason why I bring all this up is that Nickal should have gotten a lot more praise than he did from the commentary. He got the praise later on in the fight, but at the start of the first 2 rounds, he wasn't getting a lot of love. Craig was getting way too much credit, okay? Craig's jiu-jitsu is really good, to the point where why would Nickal try to take him down? And if Nickal did take him down, what would happen down there, we don't know, so we can't speak on that. But what we do know is that he didn't go for any takedowns. He maybe attempted 2. He didn't go for any takedowns. He was successful on the feet and outstruck Craig very, very well in all 3 rounds. On top of that, Craig's striking is so shit. They continue to give us the, oh my God, this is Craig, a guy who beat Jamal Hill and a guy who beat Ankalaev. Who cares? Who cares? His striking was so rudimentary that Nickal was able to, with his rudimentary striking, was able to outstrike Craig pretty clear. We'll go with the first round, okay? I've yapped enough, but in the first round he outstruck Craig by about 5 strikes. In the second round he outstruck him by 9 strikes. And the theme of the first 2 rounds is that while Craig is probably the more active striker, almost all of his strikes aren't clean. Almost all of his strikes are being parried or blocked. Okay, and then in the third round, Nickal outstrikes Craig again by 5 strikes. So there you have it on that. I have it 30-27. I believe the judges all have it 30-27. If I look just real quick, yes, all of them have it 30-27. There's no real controversy here, other than the just the way the commentator was talking about it in the first 2 rounds, make it seem as though Nickal is having problems with Craig, or he's losing in some, at least around in some sense. Some online scorecards had it for Craig. And I think that's just them listening to the commentary. It's ridiculous. But there you have it on that. At the end of this fight, you have Nickal saying next level delusions. I'm talking about, you have Nickal talking about, I was whooping him for 3 rounds. He sounded like O'Malley when he talks about the Pedro Munoz fight, where Pedro Munoz is literally outstriking O'Malley in the first round. And for some reason, that narrative has now been switched to, I was checking everything. None of them landed cleanly. That's false. I won the first round. On no planet Earth should anyone score that for him. Someone did. No comment. And for some reason, that's where we're at with that. Nickal sounded delusional by the end of the interview, where he says, I was whooping Craig. Now, he landed heavy shots on him. He landed some really clean shots. He rocked him at one point. But whooping is that's an adjective that shouldn't even be in his vocabulary for this fight. So there you have it on that. Then we go to the most interesting fight on the card. And the most gross fight on the card. It's riddled with just so much bullshit. Oliveira versus Chandler. I had this 49-46 for Oliveira. First 4 rounds for Oliveira. Last round for Chandler. This fight is gross. This fight is nasty. I want to point out that I like both of these fighters. Not equally, but I like both of these fighters. I like Chandler. I like his style. I like him as a person. I like Oliveira. I like him as a person. I like his style a lot. Before I even get to the schematics of the fight, Oliveira on the ground looked really poor. Really poor in my opinion. The lack of ground and pound from Oliveira could have made this fight look a lot more grimier than it did. And it's all because of how ineffective he was on the ground. Super, super ineffective that it made that in a different world, we're looking at a 48-47 at the very least. At the very least. No, I'm not saying Chandler wins this fight in any way. There's no path that Chandler wins this fight on the scorecards. But it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and it's marred by. Again, the commentator was praising Oliveira for his unique takedowns and his ability to just smother Chandler when he was on the ground. But from an offensive perspective, he was very bad. He was very bad. He stayed in it like this. I like this version of Oliveira. This is pretty much kind of the same version that fought Dariush minus a finish. But he was very poor. Very, very poor. And we'll start off with this. We'll start off with the first round. In the first round, Oliveira had a takedown with little to no ground and pound. He maybe landed a couple body shots, couple to the head, and that was it. We then proceed with Chandler being very active on the bottom. And by active, I mean almost all the shots that he landed on the bottom were to the back of Oliveira's head. Now, if Mark Goddard, Mark Goddard's gotten a lot of shit for maybe stopping fights, I feel a little tad bit early. And I just want to say he's probably one of the best refs on the planet. Because if he's there, Chandler is at least controlling himself somewhat a little bit. He would have acknowledged the strikes to the back of the head. He would have acknowledged that Chandler... But by the way, Chandler is a fucking cheat tonight. I defended Chandler when Chandler fought Poirier, and Poirier complained on the mic going, that guy's a fucking cheater. His hands were in my gloves. He hooked my mouth. And I remember, I don't know if I said it on mic, but I said, it's the heat of the moment. He maybe accidentally grabbed his mouth. He was trying to grab his chin. I still kind of think that even today. But let me land for a second. He was trying to grab his chin. He accidentally held his gloves. Like, I was giving him a lot more bail than I probably would have given a lot of other fighters. Guess what? No more. This guy's a fucking cheat. He's a fucking cheat, and it's fucking disgusting. He's actively hitting Oliveira in the back of the head. This is round one. We'll get later. In round one, he's hitting the back of Oliveira's head to the point where Oliveira's corner has to go, hey, yo, he's hitting him in the back of the head. And Keith Peterson, who was just gone tonight, he was blasted. He was blasted. I don't know how the fuck the assignment goes to him when it doesn't go to fucking... How does this fight not go to Mark Goddard? Mark Goddard would have alerted that immediately. Immediately. The only warning that Chandler got was in between rounds where you can hear him on the mic. Keith Peterson goes to him and says, hey, don't grab in the gloves. Don't grab the fence. It's not enough. Chandler is hitting the back of Oliveira's head repeatedly. No warning. Eventually, the corner of Oliveira alerts the ref, and then Chandler then stops because he knows what he's doing. He knows what he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. We go to round 2. By the way, I have a 10-9 for Oliveira in the first round. And hear me clearly. I put a close marker on round 1. I wouldn't give the round to Chandler, but I put a close marker because in a different universe, you can argue that Oliveira was so inactive on top of Chandler that someone could write in a 10-9 for Chandler. But I digress. I gave a 10-9 to Oliveira. Second round, Oliveira has a takedown with a little bit of ground and pound for about 2+ minutes. They kind of jog on the feet for a little bit. They're kind of even on the feet. They get to the ground. Oliveira gets a takedown, ground and pound for 2+ minutes. A lot more ground and pound. A lot more ground and pound than he delivered in the first round. You go to the second round. It's close on the feet. They're relatively even on strikes on the feet. Oliveira gets a takedown with ground and pound for 2+ minutes. He also has a submission attempt. Okay? We're 3-0 so far. You go to the fourth round. Chandler outstrikes Oliveira on the feet by about 2 strikes. Doesn't matter. Oliveira has a submission attempt with a takedown for about 3+ minutes. This is another round that pisses me off because Oliveira is so inactive on the ground. He has him on the ground. They get to the ground, okay, from a takedown from Oliveira. He has a submission attempt, but the submission attempt comes towards the end of the round, really. And in between that, there's little. I don't even want to say little to no. There's no ground and pound from Oliveira. He's just holding on. And I think that submission attempt kind of saves him this round a little bit. It's a little mixy because without this submission attempt, the only offense we have is Chandler being persistent and having a lot more success on the feet in this round. So there you have it on that. You go to the 5th round, and this is absolutely disgusting. You have Joe saying it's one of the best 5th rounds ever. You have DC being the only honest person in commentary going, all of those are to the back of the head, to the point where the camera's seen on him, and he's looking at Hunter, and he's like, they're all to the back of the head. They're all to the back of the head. They're all to the back of what the fuck? They're all to the back of the head. You can see him make the motion. And this is fucking gross. You have a sequence where Chandler's out striking Oliveira on the feet. He lands some heavy shots. He stuns Oliveira, right? I don't understand any of this. Oliveira's not tired in this 5th round. The coaching advice is keep your guard up. He's going to come close. Play it safe. That is literally the fucking translation from the corner is play it safe. Put a high guard up. Why would you do that? Why would he do that? He then proceeds to jog and run in place and play it safe, have a high guard up. The high guard doesn't fucking matter because Chandler goes through, blams him with a right, rocks him, but continues to go forward and stumble him to the ground. It's not a drop. He just stumbles him to the ground. And when he has his back, oh my Lord and Savior, Chandler is he's a cheat. And I saw a headline recently that said 15 legal strikes to the ear. Send this man to prison. Send this man to a penitentiary or something. He lands a vicious elbow, a vicious forearm to the back of the head of Charles Oliveira. And the angle you're looking at it from the back of Chandler. So you can't see the strike fully. But we're not idiots. We know where the strike landed. And you can see where Oliveira's head is. To the back of Chandler's head, to the back of Oliveira's head. And I'm screaming. DC's screaming. I'm sure his corner's screaming. If that's not even enough, let's go into let's go into the fact that the camera angle changes. And we now see Chandler land, he says 14 strikes to the ear. Fuck that. 15 strikes to the back of Oliveira's white, frosty-tipped head. Clean, illegal strikes to the back of his head. Crowd's going crazy. Illegal strikes. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know. I don't give a fuck anymore about see at the top Chandler, woo Chandler. Fuck all that. Guy's a donut. 70 billion illegal strikes to the back of Charles Oliveira's head, and I'm surprised he didn't go out. That's God, bro. That's divine intervention. I don't know how else to argue it. That's divine intervention. That Charles Oliveira didn't go. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, this is a New York commission. How are they going to? How would they, if he goes out from one of those illegal back to the head strikes? Is there a protest? Do we go to review? We go to review. We stop the fight and we grade it from that fight onward. From the rest of the rounds. Does Charles Oliveira win by decision? Or do they give the win to Chandler? Because we've seen both happen, where they just go, it was a legal strike. We saw Weidman win off of an illegal strike. Who's to say this doesn't happen here? Another blot is Keith Peterson, who proceeds to not enforce anything. He doesn't stop it. He doesn't attempt to stop it. He just tells him to stop, but not forcefully. After Chandler is done hitting the back of his head 70 billion times, he then readjusts his strikes all of a sudden. You can't tell me he's not cheating when the initial first heavy forearm to the back of Oliveira's head lands cleanly. You can't tell me that's on accident. After the 7 billion strikes to the back of Oliveira's head, he then adjusts and hits the side of Oliveira's head. And then he takes a rest. And then Oliveira finally gets up, gets his own takedown, and then proceeds to hold Chandler to the end. And that's how we end it. That round shouldn't be a 10-8. It's a 10-9 for Chandler based off of what he did on the feet and based off of the legal strikes that were on the ground. This was bad. Oliveira was jobbed in this last round. He was robbed in this last round. He was robbed from his corner, from telling him to play it safe for some weirdo reason, as though he was tired or some shit. Yeah, could he have been tired and been masking it? Sure. But that put him in more danger than anything in the fight. I'm so lost. I'm so confused. And all I can think, this fight left me with a bad taste. Oliveira's performance left me a little low, but he did well and he did enough to win the first 4 rounds. So I was, happy going up into the 5th, but it just left me with a sad taste in my mouth that, wow, this guy is disgusting. Michael Chandler is fucking disgusting, and he's a fucking cheat. He's a cheat, and now I see why Gaethje doesn't like him. I see why Poirier does. I'm pro Poirier now. So fucking gross. Illegal shots to the back of the head that nobody wants to talk about because what he did. Because at the end of the round he did those stupid jumping things where the guy's on his back and he just like a WWE move. That really means nothing. It truly means nothing. Is it damaging to the other guy? Sure. It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. I'm so hurt. I'm so fucking hurt. It's so ridiculously stupid. We go to the judges' scorecards. My scorecard again is 49-46 for Oliveira. Eric Colon, his scorecard reflects my 49-46. Junichiro Kamijo's scorecard reflects my 49-46, and Ron McCarthy is special. He's a special kid, so he gives a 10-8 in the second round. I don't know where you find a 10-8 for Oliveira in the second round. It's just a bad scorecard from Ron McCarthy. 49-45, a 10-8 in the second round for Charles Oliveira. Oliveira had a takedown with some ground and pound for 2 minutes. Nothing special happened in that round to give him round 2. To give him a 10-8 in round 2. But he does it. Because, I don't know. You can't make this shit up. You really can't. You go to the next honorable mention. That's Jones versus Miocic. Jones wins by TKO in round number 3. First 2 rounds, I gave it 10-9. In the first round, Jones had a takedown. Jones had a takedown with ground and pound for 3+ minutes. It's steady ground and pound up until the final bit where he lands really, really heavy. And there you can really argue a 10-8 if you want to. I didn't give it 10-8. I don't think it warrants a 10-8, but you can give it if you want to. It's kind of in between. And then you go to the second round, where Jones outstrikes Miocic by about 3-4 strikes. It's kind of close on strikes. Miocic is landing a lot more, but Jones is still pretty ahead on strikes. And then the finish happens in round number 3. You go to the scorecards, and Saul D'Amato and Derek Cleary, their scorecards are the same. They have a 10-8 for Jones in the first round, and then a 10-9. Excuse me. Let me restart what I'm saying. Derek Cleary, honorable mention. It's a bad scorecard. He gives the first round a 10-8 for Jones, and then he gives the second round. He gives a 10-9 to Stipe. That's ridiculous. He gave him he just threw up a round for him. He didn't win that round clearly, closely, or anyly. That's ridiculous. Honorable mention Derek Cleary. That's a shit scorecard. And then Saul D'Amato gives the first round a 10-8 to Jones, and then the second round a 10-9 to Jones. Chris Lee. His scorecard reflects mine. First 2 rounds to Jones, 10-9. And there you have it. Cool card. Nice card. Really exciting. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you all for listening. And on to the China card. Thank you all for listening. God bless.